Hello and welcome from Lincolnshire for another Wardy's Weekly Waffle Farm Update. We've had some great news this week for sugar beet growers such as myself. DEFRA have announced the emergency authorisation of neonicotinoid seed treatment if, and this is the thing, it's a big if certain criteria is met, which is based on the Rothenstedt model, and that's linked to air temperature. Now, aphids and greenfly are controlled by cold weather, so if we have sufficient frost between now and 1st of March, when the decision is actually made, then we won't be able to use the seed treatment. But 2 years ago, I lost over 50% of my sugar beet crop because it was infected by the aphids carrying this virus yellows infection, and a lot of farmers did who grow sugar beet as well. And a lot of environmentalists are jumping up and down saying the government and DEFRA are going back on their word of protecting bees and wildlife. Well, that's not the case, because this authorisation, as I've just said, is not certain. And sugar beet is a non-flowering crop, so bees aren't attracted to sugar beet anyway. And some environmentalists say it stays in the soil. Well, we follow sugar beet with other non-flowering crops, usually cereals, wheat or barley or oats. So again, that argument doesn't stack up either. And we have flower margins around the outside of every field, as you know, and other farmers do, to provide habitat for wildlife and for bees as well. So lots of contentious issues with this, but it's ongoing, and the final decision will be made on March the 1st. Anyway, on to our farm update. We are looking at how many tons of wheat we use for feeding the birds. I've had a few people ask me this week about what's the tonnage of wheat we use in our hoppers, which I'm just looking at that at the start. We also finish hedge cutting around the farm for this winter, because the cut-off date for that is March the 1st. And we're also doing a carbon audit. Ruben and Tom are doing a carbon audit for me. We're part of a trial in Lincolnshire where 10 of a dozen farmers with the NFU and a company called Alltech are looking at our carbon footprint. And so we also take a bit of a look at my costings. I have some spreadsheets I set up myself a few years ago to really hone down and fine-tune machinery costings, and that includes depreciation and labour, spares and repairs and fuel. So I'll take a look at that as well. And this carbon audit, thanks to Tom and Ruben, they're doing it on my behalf for me, which is great, and thank you for them for taking this off my shoulders. We have somebody from Alltech coming out next week to look at the details of that, so I've been really looking forward to see the final results. And also we'll take an in-depth look at our Simba Freeflow drill that we put in all our crops in the ground. You've seen how well they all look, and so we look at that in detail as well. And also one of our quad track tracks. Neighbour wanted one of those. You saw it on my video on the front of our pusher blade where we push sugar beet up to protect the sugar beet. So he's collected one of those that's used. So I just found some photos from 2016 where we're changing the track, and we're just putting some more wheat in the hoppers that we use when we take round for feeding the birds. And someone asked me only this last week after the video, how much wheat do we use in a year feeding the pheasants? And we haven't fully kept a tally of it, but I'll say it's somewhere in the region of probably 5 to 6 tons in total, and we don't get paid for that. That's just gone out. So that's £1,000 worth of feed that has gone out to feed the wildlife and the birds around our farm. And if land is taken out of production and we don't farm it, we wouldn't be able to then feed these birds. But you might say they'd feed themselves, but that's not altogether the case. So we just use these hoppers, and Ruben, who's on the Manitou at the minute, will be going round filling them up. I'm just going to move this sheet so he can get the forks on. That just hooks on there, really good. Then there's a hydraulic pin. You can see that pin there. Latches it on, and that's it. And it's all done by a ram just under there. You can see that's it, and that's all secured on now. Then we'll just brush that wheat off, otherwise it litters all over the yards and everywhere else. And then of course we've got the slide underneath there and the hatch. Just get this off. And then there's the slide and the handle for opening it and filling up the buckets and the bags that we use. We're still going around the farm cutting the hedges and the dikes, and this is the beech hedge down the side of the main drive, and this hasn't been done for nearly a year, so we're just finishing this off. We've got the main road near us, which we'll see you in a minute. It's Tom on the hedge cutter. We're on our MX135. This is the tracked and hedge cutter we share with the neighbours. The hedge cutter is on its last legs. I think it needs changing. You can tell by the sound of it. And we've got the A17 right outside here. And normally the traffic's non-stop, but there is 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the day where it is a bit quieter. And this is it now. And this is first thing next morning. Got one of our old quad tracks here. Got a friend of mine who farms a few miles away, saw one of my YouTube videos where we've got a track on the front of our blade. You'll have seen it. It's on the forklift when we push up sugar beet. So he's going to do the same. So we've got 3 or 4 of these quad tracks, and we're going to put those, give it to him rather, and then he can do the same. Interesting to see it off the tractor at the minute. You can see the lugs that it drives on, and these are the lugs that the tractor grips. But if you're interested, look up here, you can actually see where 2 lugs are snapped off. And this is the problem with some of these tracks, because when you see how many grip, another one there broken off, it's about 5 or 6 of these grip on the main idlers at the top, and when they're all starting to crack, you can see, and that's why we've had to put a new track on here. And you can see the Goodyear track, and it's when these all break off that you lose drive, because it's all done on these blocks and friction drive in the top of the track that I'll show you in a bit more detail another day. But yeah, that's the inside of a quad track. One of those new, it was about £4,000 for one of those. You can see my knee stood alongside it. In fact, I'll just turn it round, the camera around, so you can see. So that is the comparison of the track with me next to it. Shows you how big they are, and obviously these not too much putting on. It takes you about probably 40 minutes to put one track on, maybe half an hour with forklift and slackening them off. But yeah, that's the size of one of these tracks. So this is our pusher blade with part of a quad track on it. We put this on a few years ago, and it just protects the crop when we're pushing it up, and also keeps the metal blade off the floor, so it wears the rubber and not the blade. But of course that's really thick, and it's got wire in it as well, so it's really strong. And this is what my friend's going to do with the track that we've just loaded that you've seen. And I've just found some photos from 2016 from our old 535 quad track when we changed the tracks. I'm afraid I haven't got a video, but you can just see what the tractor looks like without any tracks on. We're taking part in a Lincolnshire NFU carbon audit. There's 10 or a dozen farms in the county looking at working towards net zero, and we're trying to do an in-depth carbon assessment, and Ruben and Tom are doing it. We've had about a day and a half with this already, going through all the various crops and the forms, so we'll just take a look at what's happening. So there's a form needed for every crop. We've got Gatekeeper on the screen, our field recording program, where we've got each crop highlighted, and this, looking at products used, we need to know chemical rates, we need to know active ingredients, fertilizer, and is this, what crop's this one? sugar beet. So this one is the sugar beet form, so you can see some of the area I need to look at. Crop period for the crop is in the ground, lots of detail needed. We have got, what is it, pages 7?
Yeah.
7 pages. You can see looking at the various active ingredients, the amount used, products there. We've got fertilizer table there, which of course all the details is on the screen here on Gatekeeper. The machinery used section, various cultivations here, areas used, number of passes, and then what's the other form we've got? Where's it? So this form is looking at sequestration biodiversity assessment form. So this one, I think we're going to be looking at the grass margins, hedges, trees around the farm, woodland, looking at birds. Is there anywhere where we're looking at the amount of fuel we've used here?
Yes, it's on this one.
Oh, it's on that one. So, luckily, there we go. So we're looking at type of fuel used. So luckily the spreadsheets we've got, which we'll see in a minute, for all the equipment and work rates over the years, we're going to be using that. So this is why that data is really useful. So interesting exercise, and we've got somebody from Alltech, the company who's doing the audit with us, are coming out next Tuesday to look at the results. We're just looking at the individual costs of the machines, and this is a spreadsheet I designed myself a few years ago to actually fine-tune all the costs of every single machine we have, whether it's a tractor, combine, sprayer, or machine on the back. This particular spreadsheet is the combine, which you can see at the top there. We got it in 2016. It was a demonstration model. You can see the costs all there. And we're just having a debate with Ruben and Tom here, whether we, on the hours there, that's 280 hours a year. But this last year, we used roughly 70 engine hours or 134 thrashing hours. And it'd be interesting conversation. Put a comment in the question box, please. Do you think we ought to be looking at threshing hours or actual hours used? Because obviously hours used includes transport hours on the road and in the yard and that sort of thing. So, but interesting when you start to highlight on all these figures. On this particular spreadsheet, got all the different tractors along the bottom, combine there highlighted, all the various machines, and everything in yellow is what goes in towards the running cost of the machine. So the total annual cost of running this combine is £28,300. We've got cost for oil, labour down there as well, and we're total cost of £152.19. Now that does not include a tractor and trailer, which tractors and trailers, obviously you've got to include that in the running costs of harvest and actually getting the crop from the yard to the shed. And on our, I think, what's that say, Ruben, on that wall there for operating costs?
For rape, it's £84 a hectare. For spring barley, it's £87 a hectare. Winter wheat is £79 a hectare.
So those figures include 2 tractors and trailers and harvesting. So we obviously need to add those tractors and trailers on. But I've got these spreadsheets for every single machine. If we just look at quad track figures there, running cost £84.47 an hour. The fuel is not on any of these figures here because the fuel varies, depends on what machine you have on the back. So same sort of spreadsheet for looking at a cultivator. So here we have got the Solo, and years we're going to keep it because we're already 18 years old with this machine. Final value, you can see not a lot. And total cost per hectare of that machine is £10.87. So if we start then just to go back to looking at fuel, this is another spreadsheet I set up where we record the fuel used in every single machine we have. And I've got down the bottom here, so with the quad track, the Solo and the Unipress, I haven't done this last year's figures yet, we're just about to go through those. But in 2019, we did 261 hectares with it. These are the hours that was used, fuel, litres per hour, litres per hectare. Then all these figures here, this is an average. These figures here then carry forward into the spreadsheet that we've just looked at to get an accurate figure. So it doesn't matter what it is when you're looking at the Freeflow drill, bearing in mind there, we've only got 2 years data because this quad track we've only had since late 2018. So obviously every year that will build up. But when you look at something else, if you look at the Cultipress, we've got a lot more years data there because we've had it a long while. And Dalbo rolls as well, a lot more data there. So here's a good average figure. So real accurate fuel and work rate figures that can be used in these calculations, working out carbon. Just getting the quad track out now to have a look at the drill and show you the ins and outs of our Simba Freeflow drill. You can see how the quad track bends in the middle to turn. And you can see at the top there, those lugs, how they drive and grip in there on that idler. And that's what makes the tractor go forward. You can see as well the massive footprint on the soil for ground pressure. The tractor weighs 29 tonnes and it holds 1,800 litres of fuel when it's full. And I'll show you the fuel tanks in a minute. Eight metres wide. This drill was made in 2004. But we bought it about 6 years ago. It's the third Simba Freeflow drill we've had. We started off in 1996 with a 4.5 metre. Then we went to a 6 metre in about 2004, 2005. We then had that 10 or 12 years, 10 years before we bought this one. Tom's just taking the strap off that holds the wings together for transport down the road. And we can see underneath the 4 rows there of tines. Just hang on a minute, Tom. There's the front row. There are slightly different versions here. You can see that one's cranked back. This is a bit thicker steel here. You can see that one there is a straight one. And I know Simbas did have problems a few years ago. The tines were snapping and they strengthened with putting these stronger ones on. We've actually got clamps on the point here on the spring as well, and that keeps the spring tight together and that makes it stronger as well. And obviously the pipes here goes up into the under the hopper to carry the seed down. And right, okay. Really good drill, puts the crops in the ground on our clay soils really well. We get really good emergence with it as well. And the good thing is, because of these cultivating tines at the front here that work the soil before the roller gets to it in the seed, you can actually level the ground and cultivate it a bit on some difficult soils. You can see these here, we can alter the depth of these just by purely on those holes there. So how the drill works: we've got those tines working in the ground for a start to cultivate the soil and level it, and as I say, lift those in or out. We then have this rubber roller that goes round and it consolidates the ground first of all, and you can see a little bit of soil stuck to it. We haven't washed this drill yet, by the way. This is the next machine to be washed when Tom and Ruben have finished the carbon audit. You can see here we've got 1 or 2 split tyres here, but the good thing is with this tine, it's cold now. You can see how that is flexing. When it's warm and this is working, that flexes even more and it keeps it clean. Scraper at the back, you can just see through there with a wire scraper. So that wire braiding, that wire rope there, cleans the roller. Then here we have 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of tines where the seed comes out. Got a little covering disc we've put on here ourselves, because when this tine's working, we're drilling at speed. It's actually flying soil out the side, and this keeps the soil in so it doesn't leave it ridged. So down the side there, it levels it off. We've put an extra tine on here a year or 2 ago just to keep that level as well. So at the very end, after the seed's in the ground, we then have these covering blades, these V blades here, and what they do, you can see in the middle there, the soil will be ridged between that tine and that tine. So this V blade here, just see through there, levels it out before this roller gets to it, firms it, levels it, and then the finger tines at the back, if you want to lift them up out the way, you can on this turnbuckle, or you can just keep them down to scratch the top and just finally level it a little bit if you want it doing. The gap in the roller there is filled by a little one of the coverers you can just see down there. So again, that's something else we've done. And we've got markers on it here, but we don't use them. We are going to take them off actually because of the GPS of the tractor. We've got our own base station up at the farm a few miles away, up the top of that hill, over the top of the trees in the distance. Got a base station that all our equipment runs off. So we're on Trimble system, RTK, which is a real close space one, and so that's why we don't need the markers. We've got a fan, hydraulic fan there that blows the seed down the tubes. We've got the hopper here that will hold 2 tons. Now underneath, when we're drilling in the spring, I'll show you this working, but this is where the seed drops out into rollers under there and it's carried down the tubes. The only thing is with this, it does take a little bit of calibrating because of the hoppers. You've got 2 different sides to calibrate. I'll just take this off here and show you. If we unscrew that, here's the calibration tray. You can see there the rollers, and that's inside the hopper where my finger is, and that normally you'd see seed through there. So when this is working, those rollers are going round, seeds coming out there and dropping down into the tubes. Now the depth of the drill is controlled by these rams. So we have shims in here. We've got 5 shims out there, and every one of these shims corresponds to 10 millimeters in depth of drilling. So there we've got 5 shims out, so that's 50 millimeters drilling depth or seed depth for the tines, but obviously that depends a little bit on the points, how they're wearing, but generally one shim is 10 millimeters of drilling depth. So you've got one there, another one on the outside here, you can see there's the shims out, and the same on the other side. Then on the back, still the same shims, slightly different, still the same number of 5 shims. One shim here equates to 10 millimeters drilling depth. So when Tom in the cab controls operates it, you lift this roller up and it'll hit this stop just there. So if you take the shims out, of course, or in, you just press down on that, you can see there, and put the shims in or out. Really, really simple way of controlling the depth. And I can't think there's anything else really that is useful to know apart from when we're working it. Oh yeah, the rams on the hopper there, when the hopper is full, we actually pressurise the rams in a hopper, and there's an internal hydraulic system that then pressurizes these wings. So sometimes if you're not careful, the wings can ride up at the end here, but we use the weight of seed in the hopper there, pressurize those rams, pressurize the hydraulic system to put these wings in the floor. So yeah, it's a big drill. It doesn't need 600 horsepower on the front that we've got, and this is why now we're starting to work shallower and move less soil. We're starting to look at less horsepower, but with the Solo that you've seen us using, and we've highlighted a week or 2 ago on our YouTube channel that we do on some of our heavy soils, we do need most of this power, but we're using that shallower now. So that's the drill. You can see why our winter wheat crops look really well. Just looking back at this tractor, there's a fuel tank in there, in that mudguard in that wing, another fuel tank, all that's fuel tank there, and then the fuel tank the other side of the cab. So that's all fuel in there, and that's where you get your 1,800 litres from. So looking in here, there's your prop shaft, big prop shaft there, pin there where the tractor turns on, goes all the way through the tractor there. Filters, cab suspension there as well. Then going back, big linkage, category 4 linkage. We actually haven't got anything apart from the subsoiler. that we haven't used for a couple of years. We've used it behind this tractor. There is a PTO on here, that's there, but again, that's something all our machinery at the moment is trailed. So yeah, that's looking at the tractor, just trying to think if there's anything else. You can see the idlers here take right to the outside of the track for maintaining the track on the ground and grip. And you can see here as well, this idler goes right to the edge of this track, whereas some of the other track machines like the 8RX we had in the summer doesn't, and we'll be highlighting that tractor next week. But yeah, you can see these lugs now on the track close up, that we were looking at that track that my friend's just collected today to put on a blade for his forklift. But this ones aren't cracked, and these tracks tend to be a bit better now than that one, so they're not cracked like that one you've just seen. But you can see here how it drives on these lugs in here. So you've got all these rubber blocks gripping inside these spokes, and then it starts to move away. There, you can see, you can get your hand in. And then none of these lugs here are driving down in there. You can see them going right down into the bottom, and then there they are underneath. So it's only that top sprocket that's driving the tracks, and I think now one of these tracks is probably around £6,000, but you can see big bonnet. And then just climbing up into the cab, there we are, Tom. You can just, we've got yeah, thanks, just give a, will it strike up, control panel at the side there on the pillar. What's that got there? That doesn't show your fuel, does it? Your fuel's in your Pro 700. So we've got when that one strikes up, but there's got air conditioning things. We've got camera system on most of the machines. Then your other light switches, radio, CD. What have we got up here? Two-way radio. We've got in the tractors and other machinery. It's just taken a bit while to. There we go. So this is the screen. It's sort of based on Trimble, but New Holland and Case use a very, very similar system. But you've got everything on there. So you've got your engine hours there, the tractor you can see there, 1530. Fuel used since its last operation. So this is where we get all our accurate fuel from. So we go into a field, we can tell you exactly how many hours or minutes we've been in the field, and how many litres of fuel we've used as well. So it's all makes really interesting data, and it's the only way we can manage all the costings we've got. And there we got, look at engine power, slip, fuel per hour, work rate. What's that engine power load go to, Tom, when you
can have up to 120.
120 when it's pulling on the Elita, and when it's pulling hard. Yeah, so that's all the operations run from all the whole tractor system. You can see how it's performing from there. And we've got spool valves here. We've got 6 spool valves. Got itemised here what they all do. And then we've got different functions here for where's the auto steer? Is it on the? That's it. Auto steers under there on the. So you just press that, and that kicks the GPS steering in, the auto steer, and then various things, and then a few little fine tuners and flow valves and flow adjusters underneath there. And here's your on the joystick there, got fast and slow, and you can operate spool valves as well from those switches there and there. So that's inside the cab. Quite a good spacious cab, leather seats. The only thing is, when you're looking at visibility, you think that exhaust stack there, massive exhaust stack, will impede the view, which it does, you think, but when you look and sat in the seat there, that's the view out the front, and that's what you see out the side. So it's not too bad the visibility, but compared to the 8RX John Deere, yes, not good visibility at all. So we'll just get down. Thank you, Tom. And you can see Tom's another one, takes his boots off in the cab, operates in his slippers. Look at that. So that's the quad track and the Freeflow drill down at Simba's. Finished in 2016, I think it was. Great Plains took them over and finished the company, which is such a shame. But we're, as you know, still using a lot of the Simba kit, and there's a good lot of it parked over there. So that's it for our Freeflow drill. Next week we'll highlight the Elita, which is the machine we put rape in and cover crops, and we built ourselves in the workshop. So yeah, good drill. and good tractor for establishing the crops. We'll have a look at this working in the spring, calibrating, and have a real in-depth look at it actually putting seed in the ground. Just imagine the weight in that wing. It's just those two rams there and there folding it, pipes there, the pressure on all this equipment and the hydraulic pumps required is colossal. Row spacing here is 12.5 centimetres for the seed, and we are going to be looking at rebooting this after this spring, but you can see the points are on reversible points there. These have been changed, most of these actually. Yeah, you can see there, that's a good wear there, but you can see that's worn to nothing there, so that has been changed. There you can see the coverers we have now in front of each row, in front of the tine. So that's it underneath the drill. Just having a quick look at the sheep on this grass field that we make haylage from. Got a flower margin next to this hedge. Another one down the side here. The songbird feeder there. Yep, sheep looking very settled. Benefits of our feeding really evident. Cracking. Good luck there. So that's it for another week. Hope you found it interesting. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you did, and subscribe, and come back with any questions and I'll do my best to answer them. So until this time next week, cheerio.